Lina, such a fabulous feedback that was received for the last month's show with Lucia on the power of the other hand. In fact, Salian De La Casa wrote in to say that she loved the conversation. She said she is going to add to her end of the day listening to a song while drawing with her left non-dominant hand. So today the focus of our conversations will be on focus.
Good evening. Yes, Agnella Rajesh. And, focus is something we all seem to have challenges with in varying degrees. Some days I manage to plan my time and manage to spend it how I had planned. And at other times, I just kind of wish I had an autofocus switch that, just mandated that I stay on task.
So Lina, what do we mean when we use the word focus?
So focus is when you have mastery over your brains in a sort of very clear and vivid form. Our brains tend to have several and simultaneous trains of thought, what we call the monkey chatter. And focus is the ability to give attention and concentration and mental energy to just one of those and tune out unnecessary distraction. So when you think of focus, think of this metaphor to explain its importance. So if you hold, and this is how my teachers have explained it to me ever
Mhm.
since I was a kid. So if you hold a magnifying glass over a pile of dry leaves, and it's the hottest day of the year even, with the sun shining overhead, nothing will happen. But as soon as you hold the magnifying glass still and focus the rays just on, one leaf, the whole pile of leaves will erupt into flames. This is the beauty and power of focus.
Fantastic, Lina. What a powerful metaphor. One that can literally change one's life. One's attention or focus is like a magnifying glass. Lina, I've been using various tips and tools to remain focused, including a shift to checking my WhatsApp only once in an hour. In fact, that is a message on my WhatsApp status. In today's world, there are just so many ways to get distracted. I find myself digitally bombarded.
Absolutely. So, all these triggers that get us unfocused are known as external triggers. And there's so many of them in our environment. And that is why in being indistractable, being able to focus, will be a human superpower going forward. Studies are indicating that our attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter.
Yes.
So, focus will be an extremely coveted human skill. And today, what I'd love to do is to explore science-backed tips to destroy distraction and kind of stay productive. Studying autism is something that we rarely ever think about. Intelligence is not just our brain's ability to take in stimuli from the environment and to process it, but it's also kind of like our brain's ability to block out information that is not important. I mean, think of any environment you're in and the vast amount of external stimulation that can possibly enter your senses every single moment, and all of those external stimulations have to be processed by your brain simultaneously at the same time.
Yes, Lina, I can visualize stimuli overload in so many ways. Even imagine just sitting in Mumbai traffic. There is a bombardment of visuals, sounds, and the smells also.
Absolutely, all external triggers. I mean, we usually don't even tend to think of smell as a distraction. But now imagine all that external sensory stimulation, and you're in the Bombay traffic, and in the
Mhm.
middle of all of that, you get a work call. Right now, you have to focus on the voice that's coming through the phone. When your brain decides that this is the area of focus, it then somehow suppresses all the other stimuli that can distract you. There is a specific circuit in the brain that has been identified to help us do this.
So, Lina, could this be why we actually are not consciously mindful of some distracting noises like the buzzing of a fridge till it actually stops?
Absolutely, Agnella Rajesh. You would have actually heard that background noise when it started, but then at some point, when your brain thinks that it's not worth the attention, it tunes it
Mhm.
out. It's like it tunes. You walk into a smelly room, and you
Yes.
smell it instantly, and then again, it's the same sort of process. Your brain blocks it out. However, when that background noise, the buzzing of the fridge or whatever it is, stops, is when you kind of become aware that it was there in the first place. Because this is your brain still using some amount of mental energy to adapt and to ignore it, even if it was minimum amount of energy. In fact, autism is thought to be the inability to block out, external stimuli, to filter out what you don't need. So autism, in some sense, is a hypersensitivity to noise and stimuli.
Mhm.
But even brains not affected by autism, like our brains, while our brains are extremely powerful, they are pulled in so many directions at once. And this can limit our ability to focus and do a singular task well.
Oh, wow. Fantastic, Lina. We have joined by our corroboree. We have got Nailesh Shah, Sandeep Pote, Amol Patil, Ravi Salunke, Paul Ritesh. We have Amara, Namrata Thakkar. There is Shri Ram VSR. There is Preeti Shrimal. So, friends, as you watch this show and enjoy this conversation between me and Lina, why don't you just jump in by asking some questions or making some comments or sharing this content? Be participative so that we can also address your questions and you will feel engaged with the activity that's going on. So, Lena, do
Yeah.
we need to focus and only do one task at a time? Or what about multitasking? Frankly speaking, Lena, I really enjoy doing a lot of things at the same time. I really enjoy that.
Knowing you, Agnella Rajesh, I can imagine that. So, research has shown that people who kind of juggle tasks or several streams of content do not manage or pay attention to that one task, and can't do it as well as those of us who choose to focus on one task. We kind of call it monotasking. So, focusing on one task at a time has been shown to be more effective and more efficient. So while monotasking seems to be the general consensus,
Mhm.
while doing the research, I also just read one alternate view. It was in the Journal of Applied Psychology, which kind of backs what you like, that multitasking increases brain activation, which increases cognitive flexibility. So resulting in a positive effect on subsequent creativity. So let me explain this to you. So if I have to create something, and I'm looking at something from art, something from English, something from math, so perhaps when I let it rest, my brain brings those things together to create a new idea, a new innovation idea, creative thought. So it's only in this one research article did I read any support for multitasking, that multitasking can make you creative in the long run.
Wow, Lena, now I'm confused. To multitask or not? That is the $1 billion question that I want to ask.
I think you kind of have to be wise when choosing. You have to strategically choose. When you need to generate new ideas or new solutions, you may want to multitask a little bit and allow a bombardment of information and ideas to flow in. Um, but remember that you're still focused on the one outcome you want, right? So while you're streaming parallel pieces of content, your outcome is still the one. It could be an idea, or a production, or something you want to create. But once you know what you need to do, I would really, really suggest and advise that you establish a process to reach wherever you want to go. And
Mhm.
once you've done that, you switch to monotasking. This is, of course, what we're very different. Multitasking is very different to what we are all more guilty of, which is actually being multi distracted.
Fantastic. Lina, there are our corroboree asking us questions. Namrata Thakkar has asked how to focus on work without getting distracted by WhatsApp. I'm sure she's going to get the answer during our conversation. Girija Gopinath, is multitasking a myth? So is multitasking a myth? So that's
So,
that's
so as I said, what I try to provide our corroboree is research backed. It's not something that I want to provide that is my idea or my opinion or my, so even if I have a train of thought, I kind of look for research to back it up. So it's only in this one article that I found multitasking not to be harmful. But I think again, it just depends on doing it only while you're trying to stream together a new idea. But I think once you've got that, once you know now you have to sit down and start writing it, you may want to start monotasking.
Awesome, awesome. So, Lina, I know that I'm often multi-distracted actually. I juggle between screens and tasks. Even if I'm watching a movie, I can't just help myself but keep juggling between your multiple mobile phones or the phone and the iPad. So, after reading Deep Work, I have got better, but sometimes my brain outsmarts me, even though I want to outsmart my brain and have laser focus.
So this is the whole thing, that our entire journey is, do we have mastery over our brain, or does our brain have mastery over us? So there's a trick when this happens, and this is a trick that I read in Harvard Business Review, and it involves 3 steps. And I've
Mhm,
tried it, and it works. And one thing I want to tell our corroboree is, anything I read about, even if
mhm.
it's research backed, I try it before I ever sort of talk about it on Moonshot Conversations. So these are the 3 steps. And say I'm now wanting to do some research for our Moonshot Conversation, or for an interview I'm doing for Corroboree. I will
Mhm.
do as much as I can to turn off distractions. So, Namrata asked about her WhatsApp. So I will turn off all my alerts, right? I'll
Okay.
keep my phone on silent. Now, say I get alerted by something, somebody knocks on the door or walks in and asks me a question. Now, to get back on task, it's as simple as A, B, C. So A stands for awareness. So I have to
Mhm,
be aware of my options. So say it's
mhm.
my dad who walks in and he's got a dilemma, right? That my mom needs attention or something like that. I have to become aware of my options. I can either give into the distraction. So at that point in time, if my dad came in and said my mom needs something, I would give into that distraction and go in and tend to her, and then come back, right? So if not, if he's just asking me a question, I will answer it or I'll ignore it. In fact, my dad and I used to sit in the same room and work, but now I sit in another room because his alerts tend to get me distracted. So let me go back to the ABC. A stands for awareness of my options. I can either give in to the distraction or keep focused on the task at hand. B stands for breathing deeply. The minute you breathe deeply, you get into the body, you become present. And C stands for choosing which option to take. So, as I explained in my dad's situation, I either go or I choose and say, sorry, I can't tend to it now. I'm going back to being non distracted. So the beauty is, as you nurture this technique, you will increase the amount of time you can focus. And this actually, the more you learn to focus, it actually changes the physical makeup of the brain itself. So almost all conversations we've been having, Agnila Rajesh, the more
Yes.
anything we do, any thought we have, anything we do, any way we give, anytime
Mhm.
we practice focus, we actually alter the structure of our brains.
Fantastic. So, Lina, if I were to do this, I sense that I would be most likely to focus and continue with the task at hand. In fact, I would choose to pay attention to the thing that moves me forward, which is the task over the distraction.
So this is why mindfulness is so important, right? So it is conscious attention. That's all mindfulness is. The experts at Harvard call this deliberate attention. In this way, we set an intention for our attention before
Okay.
we get pulled into the moment of distraction.
Oh, wow. I love that, Lina. So we set an intention for our attention. That is real focus. I feel this would really help my attention stay razor sharp, even with all the beeps, lights, and other attention seekers that keep leaping out from our screens.
Absolutely. So much of research has been done in this area and written about by so many authors. One of them is Nir Ayel. He's written 2 books, and I've interviewed him for Corroboree. Hooked and Indistractable are his two
Yes.
books. So
Yes.
the first thing we should be mindful of is that apps and games, everybody working in the field of technology, like everyone working in the area of marketing, understand neuroscience. They understand neuroscience as deeply as neuroscientists do. They read everything on neuroscience. They know that any alert sends a message to our brains that something else is urgently needing our attention, and they use this neuroscience to hook us.
Absolutely. This is something vital for us to know and be consciously aware of. It's a fact that the technology designers know and use the neuroscience of addiction and use it to build their apps and games.
technology, know that seeing a notification releases a dopamine spurt in our brains, and this starts leading us to be addicted to these digital alerts. This is why every social media site or game lures you with
Yes.
rewards to keep your alerts on and tries to manipulate you with these rewards to do so. So, awareness of this is just so, so important.
I absolutely agree with you, Lina. If we have awareness, then we will not senselessly and mindlessly give in. In fact, we have the information and the power to make a deliberate choice, consume or create.
Yes, and let's be honest, most days I can keep a laser sharp focus, but there have been
Yes.
days when I have been lured to sensely consume. So what I do realize, but at the end of that day of aimlessly
Mhm.
social media browsing or Netflixing or game playing, is I end up feeling pretty lousy. I don't go to sleep with a sense of fulfillment. One episode of something feels relaxing, a binge watch of a series feels pretty lousy. Maybe not while you're in the throes of consuming, but
Mhm.
most of us find happiness in producing and creating.
Isn't it strange, Lina, that we sometimes derail our own happiness and productivity? In fact, we give in to distractions that reduce our productivity and it also diminishes our ability to immerse. I feel real deep happiness and fulfillment occurs when one makes and moves towards goals and growth.
Absolutely. So, and that is why, while I may feel some short term pleasure when I social media browse or gameplay or Netflix, it will only be pleasure, which is short term. And we kind of confuse pleasure and the word happiness. An overdose of pleasure reduces our chances of
Mhm.
reaching a state of flow and learning and discovering new things. And this is where true happiness is. And this is actually the calling of every human soul. And accomplishing these goals that keep us feeling like we're moving forward really requires strong focus, motivation, and determination. And this is where everyone has to understand true contentment, meaning, and happiness lies.
Wow, fantastic, Lina. Our corroboree is very active today. Lots of people are asking questions. So, what I'm going to do, Lina, is I'm just going to read out the questions and I want you to cover the answers during our normal course of conversation. So, I'll just randomly speak the questions of the corroboree, what they have asked. There is Amara who has asked, how can we focus when we have to shift topics, like from creativity to strategy? From strategy to execution? Very good question, Namara. Lena, please make a note of it because there are too many questions so that I want you to answer during our regular conversations. There is Divya Punjabi who's asking, does multitasking not sap your energy and reduce quality? Then there is Namrata asking again, is multitasking good? So yes, Namrata, even I want an answer for that. There is Amara who's again asked, even I'm curious to know this since we have to shift our deep thought processes. Good question, Amara, again. Samina Jamal, she has mentioned my creativity is sparked during multitasking. Wow, that's a good one, Samina. Thank you for that. Ravi Salunke has said the book, The One Thing, gives a lot of clarity on subject. Thank you, Ravi, for sharing that to the audience and to us as well. There is Sriram VSR who's saying that, asking, does multitasking have any examples in marketing person's life? Surely we will get back to that as well, Sriram. Ravi Salunke has asked, we can do one task at a time, but we can keep thinking multiple things at the same moment. So that's a comment from Ravi. Namrata Thakkar loved the concept of awareness, the ABC formula that you just spoke, Alina. ABC is awareness, breathing deeply, and then C stands for choosing. That's fantastic. So, Korabri, we look forward for your questions. Please keep pouring your questions, and all of them will be answered during the conversation and also specifically after the show by Lina Asher. Yeah, Lina, you want to say something?
So Divya's asked a very interesting question that I'd like to answer. She said,
Sure.
Lina, you said apps and games use neuroscience and addiction. Do TV serials do the same? When I started new series, I binge watched, just did that last week. And I was reading about this, Divya, and it's interesting you asked this question. So there's a trick for that as well. So yes, TV serials use the same thing because they leave you in a state of suspense. And what I read from a neuroscience point of view, our minds do not like uncertainty, so they want to watch the next. So that's how they hook you to watching the next and the next and the next. And the solution is you finish one episode, you get left at a climax, you watch the next episode. So you just understand where the cliffhanger finishes, and you switch off the TV. So that was an interesting trick I read about. I said that was very, very useful for me.
Yeah, especially in every episode, the last 4 to 5 minutes you should skip, otherwise it will hook you on to the next episode again. So that's
Yeah.
what I do every night, because we are now so accustomed to watching serials and episodes in the night, and they're so interesting these days that they don't allow you to quit and exit. So this is the best trick: stop 5 minutes before the episode ends. Lena, so what are some of the practices you include in your routine to keep you growing, to keep you productive, and to make sure that you're on track with all your tasks?
So something I found of immense value, and a lot of people have written about it, including Neer Ayel. And it's a coin. It was a term that was coined in 2018 as the top productivity technique. And
Mhm.
so there are many social behavioral scientists who've done research on this, and it's the concept of time boxing. So the key to time boxing is to focus on the process and not the outcome. So you focus on which times you work and which times you play. So I time box when I will write, I time box when I will learn, and when I'll indulge in TV watching. So by time boxing, you're not saying for these 2 hours I will finish doing this. You'll just say for these 2 hours I will focus on writing this or creating this. And by time boxing, what you'll find is you set time aside for the things that are also likely to distract you, like game playing, social media scrolling, or TV watching. And then when you time box them, you actually control them instead of allowing them to control you.
Fantastic. So, Lina, I have decluttered after our episode on minimalism, and I have started brushing my teeth with my left hand. So now the concept of time boxing is something that I will next experiment to increase my focus all the more better.
So another research-backed solution to increase focus is meditation. And Samina Jamal, who was my partner, she's the Bhopal Billabong owner. She's one of the dearest people on this planet, and she's healing herself through focused conversation with your ailing part is a form of meditation. It's one of the questions that she's asked. Researchers have shown that meditation training makes the brain more efficient to distributing neural resources. It
Yes.
also starts training the brain to start becoming comfortable with nothingness. So this is
Mhm.
a term we should all become familiar with, because nothingness is something that almost every human being seems to fear. And it is this fear of nothingness that makes it so tempting to keep picking up our smartphones, because this is so vast, full of lots fullness.
Wow, so true, Lina. You can never be bored or have to learn to cope up with nothingness when you have access to a smartphone, which is absolutely ruling our life. The phone seems to be the greatest anti focus invention ever invented.
It is. So meditation can help your brain to become getting comfortable with being still, with nothing. It helps you from shifting from from doing to being, to being. And spending time in nature can also help you. It increases focus and creativity. A simple act of putting a green plant on your table can increase creativity, it's found. So a lot of work now also demonstrates that the art of reflecting in the evening has a positive effect. So
Mhm.
our all of this has an effect on our general well-being and focus. So whether you do our reflection journals, which allow you for a guided journaling process, or you just take a notepad and you free flow journaling, um, both ways will be extremely useful. The other useful way to create additional attentive space to make sure that we get sufficient sleep.
Yes.
Yeah, negative emotional thoughts are also not great for focus. They create internal urges for distraction. So we kind of say it, if the beeps, dings, and all of those sensory stimulations are triggers for external distraction, our inner discomfort with being still or dealing with negative emotions, those are our internal distractions.
Fantastic, Lina. So external distraction, friends, seems easier to cope up with. It can just be done by turning off your alerts and minimizing your external stimuli. The internal distractions may not be as easy. We are humans and we are all vulnerable to negative emotions from time to time. So then we are all vulnerable to internal distractions.
Of course we are, and this is part of the human condition. And
Yes.
the aim is not to take them and stuff them down or ignore them. Suppressed in our bodies in some way, and they will rear their ugly head at some point in time and show up as an illness or a physical ailment. So, to begin with, we should at least be aware and mindful that they exist, that these emotional states exist, and to be acutely aware that our brain's way of not wanting to deal with them is to seek escape. So, one way to manage them is reflective journaling, which is a
Yes.
positive way and allows
Mhm.
us to deal with these unpleasant emotions in a reflective rather than reactive way, which is, the smartphone.
Absolutely. In fact, Lina, I recall Laila Al Qadri's powerful statement during the session that we did with her. The emotional issues we don't deal with don't go away, they get stored in our body. The issue gets stored in the tissue.
Absolutely. And it's because we don't want to deal with them that we become susceptible to
Yes.
internal triggers, and these ask us to seek distraction. And because it means we don't have to deal with the negative emotions. So whether it's social media, games, or Netflix, they're only symptoms of the problem that we have. So, there's a documentary called The Social Dilemma, and it makes technology and social media seem like a culprit and us, the consumers, like victims, but we're not victims because we actually have power to take charge of internal and external triggers of distraction. We know that our brains want the path of least resistance. So, given a choice between deep work and distraction, our brains will naturally choose distraction unless your mind has power over your brain. What, where, how, and the length of time we give attention to something in life, along with repetitive thoughts that we have, this is what forms our neurological wiring.
Fantastic, Lina. So, in fact, Henry Ford said, it has been my observation that most people get ahead during the time that others waste.
Absolutely. Every day we wake up with a choice of choosing how we want to spend our time. It's only if we decide to focus that we can stay locked on our goals and keep moving forward. You choose external or internal trigger, be distracted or stay focused. Be mindful that distractions end up not only wasting your time but also the quality of your work. And
Yes.
somebody asked that earlier. Research shows that it takes approximately 23 minutes to get
Wow.
back on track after being distracted.
Wow. So, for those wanting to get ahead, becoming indistractable is being able to first identify internal and external triggers that make you lose focus and then harnessing the power to stay focused. So, important in a world where, most people are distracted all the time, distracted at work, distracted with family, distracted with family's dinner time, socially, multiple
Yes.
ways.
Yep. And it's sad because, the majority of people who will fail to experience the fullness of life filled with deep focus and purpose because they don't understand this. It is a minority in this world that prioritize learning and creating and invest energy, time, and focus in personal development and growth. We get to choose, all of us get to choose every day to bring awareness of choice to ourselves and to our children. Do we want life, dreams, and goals, or TV, games, and social media? Benjamin Hardy once said, it's entertainment and distraction which is the enemy of creation and learning. They will keep you in mediocrity. I used to tell
Mhm.
my son as he was growing up, you choose. Do you want an ordinary life or an extraordinary life? And remember, when you choose, that we are made to create. Our souls are made to create.
Fantastic. So, are there different types of focus, Lina?
So we like this. There's narrow focus and wide focus. Wide focus is something I will need if I'm teaching in a classroom. I need to be thinking of multiple things at one time. Wide focus is something that a symphony conductor needs when he's conducting a piece of music, or a soccer player needs. Like while he's dribbling, he has to scan where his players, where his team is, where the opposition is, and work out what his next move is. So our conversation is mainly about narrow focus. It's the type of focus you have when you're attempting a math problem or sewing a button.
On full alert.
Yep. And remember that narrow focus works in a way like when the horses wear those blinkers,
Yes.
and then the horse has no peripheral vision. It's how we keep the horse focused. When I moved from a cabin to an open plan office, I got through very little creating because of all the distractions around me. One person's phone bings, and then another one's dings, and to be able to single task, I would have needed a set of visual and auditory blinkers. Despite our brains having more than 100 billion neurons that act as super high speed neural processors, still our brain's resources can only be stretched so thin.
In fact, when we dedicate our attentional resources to processes what is happening in the environment, we often don't have resources to allocate to another task.
Yeah, and there's so much of this environmental distraction that it has created the basis of a new science called interruption science.
Yes.
There's a researcher, Gloria Mark, who studies digital distraction, and she finds that it takes an average of 25 minutes to return to an original task. So when you get interrupted, it's not just that time of interruption that will derail your mental progress. It's also half an hour after the interruption for you to get back on task.
Absolutely. And Lina, in today's age, while your mental progress is in delay, you are most likely to encounter yet another distraction. So a quick check of your WhatsApp is not just the 10 seconds it takes to read the message, but the 24 minutes plus the 30 minutes, and that is a lot of wasted time.
Not only that, Agnil or Rajesh, research says that distractions don't only hurt productivity; they actually have a lot of negative emotional effects.
Yes.
Which is probably why we are facing so much of depression in the world. Attention distraction leads to higher stress, lower mood states, and lower productivity. So just like kids get stressed when we overbook them and we
Mhm.
overwhelm them and we academize them, the same thing happens to adults. We basically get cognitively overloaded.
In fact, this feeling of cognitive overload must be occurring in organizations with high email traffic as well.
Yep. And people who check their email frequently are lower in focus and productivity. So one of the
Yes.
things you can do is time box your emails in batches, time box your reading, your composing, or responding to emails. And there's a definite relationship between email usage, focus, stress, and productivity. So obviously, batching or time boxing is the best way to deal with better way for you to be productive and for your health. Imagine in 2016, the statistics shows that our length of attention, and this is 2016. Imagine what it is today. Our length of attention has gone down to an average of 40 seconds.
Lina, how much productivity can anyone really manage with just 40 seconds of focus time?
Not very much, and not, it can happen in 40 seconds, which is why the ability to increase one's focus will be the superpower going forward. Keep in mind that half our interruptions are self-inflicted. Do we want technology to control us, or do we want to be in control of the technology? I heard this on a podcast, and I feel like it's such a useful description to understanding what we're doing with our brains. We are playing tennis with our cognitive energies. We're volleying them back and forth, and all at a moment's notice. But unlike a tennis ball, our brain takes a little time to keep switching directions. So we're wasting time, we're wasting mental energy, um,
Yes.
we're wasting time to deep think and productivity. You cannot achieve flow or creativity in this way at all.
Absolutely. In fact, friends, so whatever controls your attention controls what you're capable of. Taming your brain puts that control back into your own hands. Focus, I feel, seems to be one of the greatest weapons to conquer productivity and creativity. So there are a few things I know I'm going to do. What I'm going to be doing is, first is switch off all alerts. Second is put my phone out of reach when I need to focus, so that I'm not tempted to check it. and be distracted. The third action I'm going to do is put a do not disturb sign on my door when I need periods of focus time. The fourth action I'm going to take is I'm going to spend time in nature with nature. The fifth element that I would love to do is meditate. I'm not good at it. I'm learning, but I'm very confident that meditation, which most of you will agree with me, does help us to meditate. The sixth action that I'm going to take is get sufficient sleep. And most important, which we are most of the people lazy about, the last action that I would suggest to do, and I'm also doing it myself, is to exercise.
Absolutely. So you can train your focus. Like you said, when I meditate, I learn to meditate. It's like everything we do. You can train your focus just like you would a muscle. Refer back, to the moonshot conversation we did on building
Yes.
habits. Work
Yes.
out what your focus anchor is, and begin with a mini dose of even just 1 minute every day, and then improve it day after day. This just make sure that you have specific time prompts or anchors, and then build your focus muscle gradually over time. Remember that the brain procrastinates when it feels a task is challenging. So
Yes.
break any big task into smaller tasks, or any big goal into smaller goals. So if I have a goal of writing a book, I'll start with write the big idea. I'll time box that, and then create an outline. Write 500 words. There's a great technique I read about, and it's in your journals, and it's called the Pomodoro technique. So as you
Yes.
build your ability, you start to set a timer, say for 25 minutes, and then you take a 5 minute break. And when you've finished a block of focus, say an hour, you then reward yourself by Netflixing or playing a game or a social media scroll. When your brain anticipates a reward, it releases a lot of dopamine. So as you practice the ability to focus, um, this in this way, and you get addicted to the dopamine, it becomes effortless, because your focus will start altering your brain structure. Your neurons will fire more effectively and effortlessly as you do this.
Yes, I remember reading about this in Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. So, friends, we should all remember that skills that are rare are more valued, and as the ability to perform deep work becomes more difficult and rarer, it is what will make it increasingly valuable. So those of us who cultivate this skill will thrive. And for those of us that may find a 25-minute stretch a challenge, at first we should start with a 5 minutes and a 1 minute break, and then a 10 minutes and a 2 minute break till we work up to a 25-minute Pomodoro, like just what Lena explained.
So I just want to take Samina Jamal's before I answer this question, because she's just absolute favorite of mine. How can focus be incorporated in the class? What can be done? And this is the last suggestion I'm giving you that connects to what I'm going to say to you, Samina. With kids, you could start with music, but the last suggestion I would like you and our corroboree to try is binaural beats. We spoke
Yes.
about this in the episode on the power of sound. Binaural beats are available on Spotify, Apple, or Prime Music for kids when they're listening to audiobooks, or when they need to creatively write. We all have to remember where focus goes, energy flows. So we actually have to go back and go back to where we need to look. So the choice is TV, social media, and endless distraction, or focus and deep work. There's a quote that says that focus is not a willpower effort. One does like, so you don't have to apply the willpower in the midst of distractions. It is the act of removing distractions and effortlessly doing what is left. So Samina, the more we can remove distractions in the classroom for kids, bells and whistles, and increase the at the our period time slots, the better it is, and the more capable our kids will be into getting into states of flow.
Fabulous, Lena. We are out of time yet again. So see you next week, Lena, you as well as the corroboree. Same time, same place, different concept exploration.
Yes. So next week I'm tossing up between speaking about empathy as a superpower or self-leadership. But I will have decided this by the time we're ready for Friday's announcement. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Corroboree, for joining us Sunday after Sunday, 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you for all your questions and comments. Lena will make sure that she responds to each one of you. And there are some very interesting comments. Ravi Salunke has said, Lena, awesome. Rajesh sir, Lena ma'am, what an extraordinary session this is. Thank you, Ravi. So Bhavika, Sandeep Pote, Ravi, Paul Ritesh, Amol Patil, Samina Jamal, thank you all of you all to participate and interact with us on the live session. In fact, Lina, you have answered more of Samina's questions than my questions on this session, but it was a very interesting one, and that's awesome. Thank you, the corroborate, to join and be with us during this session. We will see you again on the coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you so much.
Bye.